Suroosh Alvi went to Saudi Arabia to examine the country's complicated relationship with terrorism. This is his debrief.
I think the reason that people accuse Saudi Arabia of supporting terrorism so much, first and foremost, is 9/11. 15 of the 19 9/11 hijackers were Saudi nationals. Prior to that, if you look at the war in Afghanistan, there were a lot of Saudi nationals who left the kingdom and went and waged jihad. And so they've had a history of supporting their Muslim brothers who are fighting wars in different countries in the region. Now, there are a lot of Saudi nationals that are going and joining ISIS. So all these factors together help create an image of Saudi Arabia that they are supporting terrorism. But if you go there and you ask them and anyone in the government, they will show the amount of counterterrorism efforts that are taking place in the country. And that's what we saw. You know, we talked to a bunch of different people, former members of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and I think ISIS has done an incredibly effective job of recruiting young Muslim men. Their videos are slick as shit, and they make it look very compelling and interesting for a young man who may be on the margins of society, disaffected, alienated, to go join ISIS. So that is one of the reasons I think that a lot of Saudi nationals are joining ISIS. We met several former members of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. We went to the Al-Hayr prison. It's a maximum security facility outside of Riyadh that has about 1,000 prisoners, the majority of whom were in terrorist groups. They have an idea of what it's going to be like with ISIS. ISIS says this is what our mission is, and they sign up for that. But when they get there, it's not the reality of the situation. And once you're part of these groups, it's very difficult to extract yourself. Counterterrorism is a huge initiative in Saudi Arabia now. Between 2003 and 2006, there were a lot of incidents of domestic terrorism in Saudi Arabia. And after that, they said, okay, we need to do something about this. And they have spent billions of dollars, I think $3.4 billion, on a fence that spans the entire length of the border of Iraq and Saudi Arabia. And there are thousands of troops that patrol this vast desert. However, people are still managing to get across. They discover new cells every day in Saudi Arabia. That said, the number of incidents in Saudi Arabia has decreased dramatically. So it is possible, but I think they have to be incredibly vigilant. It's a daily fight, and they are investing billions upon billions of dollars to fight terrorism inside the kingdom. The new Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Nayef, has set up 2 de-radicalization centers, and he's taking the threat of terrorism very seriously and is really spearheading counterterrorism and investing a lot of money into the de-radicalization. They've set up these 2 very, very big rehab centers that have swimming pools and gyms, and they can handle about 300 to 400 people per unit. And when somebody comes back from fighting with ISIS or Al-Qaeda, they spend some time in prison, and then certain cases, they say, you know what, this person, we think we can rehab them, and they put them into this rehab center, and then they spend a lot of time there, and then they will reintroduce them into society. So it feels like they could be putting a lot more people through the rehab center, but the fact is, these rehab centers exist, and that's a good thing. Working as journalists in Saudi Arabia was incredibly challenging. It took us literally years to get permission to enter the country. And once you're in, the government is on you all the time. There are always government minders around, and that's not how we like to operate. They make it very, very difficult to do your job as a journalist and to chase stories because they're trying to manage the message. So it was challenging, for sure.